Hello and welcome to Hot Tea with Holly. I am Holly and I'm having a hot cup of tea on this Tuesday afternoon. How are you? And welcome. If you're here with me live, please say hello. And if you're watching this in playback, please say hello. I am here every Tuesday at this time, 1 o'clock p.m. on the East Coast. Every Tuesday, I go live over on my Holly Perkins Fitness page on Facebook, and I'm here to talk about some relevant topic in the hopes of giving you some inspiration and some education so that you can use strength training and intentional nutrition to really create the body that you need to keep up with this life that you love. And today it's a tea day. I am having my very strong PG tips with a little bit of oat milk in it and a little bit of honey today because I don't have my maple syrup. But today is definitely a caffeine day. So if you're watching this and recording, this episode was filmed the day after Memorial Day. And I definitely took a little time off this weekend to enjoy the holiday. And I'm feeling it. I'm needing some caffeine. If you're here with me live, please say hello. Are you having a hot beverage, a cold beverage, a hydrating beverage, a carbonated beverage, no beverage? Tell me what you are drinking because I want to know. I just got a new shipment. I'm so excited. So I have been obsessed with yuzu. Yuzu is basically like a Japanese citrus fruit, and there are a few things here in the United States that get flavored with yuzu, but I am obsessed with yuzu. And recently, I was on the hunt for a yuzu flavored matcha that I discovered from Republic of Tea years ago. I think they discontinued it, but I have been on the hunt for yuzu matcha. And I was out on the Google machine searching for yuzu matcha, and I discovered that Harney and Sons has a yuzu sencha, which I am so excited about. I just got a shipment of that. I'm going to be trying that later today. So exciting. And super excited for today's conversation. We are talking about 3 key moves and how to do them right. So welcome. If you're here with me live, please say hello. So happy to have you. Holly is here. Elizabeth. I am on the PG tips, right? I got to get my glasses out. You guys, my eyes are just getting worse and worse and worse and worse. I know, right? Oh, Sammy, thank you. Thank you. Heidi, yay. Heidi's having lemon balm tea as I've had too much caffeine this morning. LOL. I should not be caffeinating in all honesty, but you guys know me. I love me some caffeine. So welcome. If you are here live and you're new, please say hello. Let's jump in. We are talking about 3 key strength exercises and how to do them right. Now, listen up. If you are newer to strength training or if you're more advanced, this is really important to understand this disclaimer about today's conversation. These are 3 strength training exercises that should be in your repertoire every week. This doesn't mean these are the only 3 exercises you should do. This doesn't mean you need to do these exercises all in one workout. These are just 3 really important exercises that you should know, that you should be practicing, that should be in your weekly routine consistently every single week. Now, consistently is a really important consideration. A big mistake that I see a lot of women make with strength training is they don't follow a program. It's so important. Listen, grab your notebook. If you learn nothing else from me, please learn this. It's absolutely essential that you're on a program and you're following a consistent program for at least 8 weeks. In my opinion, every program should be 12 to 16 weeks at a minimum, 12 to 16 weeks. Every program I ever write is always at least 12 weeks. And in actuality and in practice, they really should be closer to 16 weeks. So you want to be on a very specific strength training program that you stick with every single week. And the reason for that is, number one, you want your body to adapt and to get familiar with the workout that you're doing. And I know that flies in the face of what you may hear out there in the internet world, that you're supposed to mix it up and the body like gets stale and it plateaus, and you want muscle confusion, as one of the big fitness media marketers kind of put out many years ago. Muscle confusion. The truth is, you actually don't want that. Really, what you want is you want your body to become familiar with certain exercises so that you get rid of the muscle soreness, so that your body gets familiar with it, so that you can really challenge yourself week after week after week. So, too much variety and too much flip flopping around is not a great idea, because then your body is in this chronic state of trying to learn what you're giving it, and you actually don't want that. That's not ideal. So, rule number one is make sure that you are on a dedicated, well-structured program and that you're following it every single week. And within that program, these three key exercises really should be there. You want these three exercises in the mix, however your weekly split routine looks. So if you're doing a 3-day split, a 4-day split, a 5-day split each week, that is really kind of the art and science of your programming. But this is why I just so encourage you to be on a program so that you don't have to figure that out. But regardless of what your weekly split is, you want these three exercises to appear definitely once. Maybe some of them could appear twice, depending on the program that you're following. Generally, the way I program key exercises once per week only, so that you can get more variety in the week. So let's say you've got 2 leg days. Those 2 leg days, the way I program is that each leg day has 2 very different routines and very different exercises. So the exercises that appear on your 1 leg day per week are very different than the exercises that appear on the 2nd leg day per week, for example. And that applies to the other major muscle groups of the body. And I like that because that then exposes your body to different movement patterns and different just mechanics. But if you repeat it each week and you hit these exercises once per week, it's enough for your body to adapt and get familiar, but you've got enough variety to keep things feeling fresh. So these 3 key exercises that we're going to go over should appear somewhere. They don't have to be in the same day. They aren't the only thing that you should do. There are other exercises that you should do, but these 3 should absolutely, without question, be in the mix somewhere over the rainbow. So these 3, I will do these exercises every single week, no matter what, even if I'm off track. Even if I'm a little sloppy in my own programming, these 3 exercises don't ever get skipped for me. So even if I'm on, let's call it more of like a down cycle where I'm doing fewer workouts, less volume, more of an active recovery structure, I will still do these 3 exercises because they are so important, period, full stop, but to keep your body really moving optimally and functioning optimally. So let's jump in, because now I've foreshadowed these 3 exercises. You probably have your notebook and your pen ready to take some notes, right? Okay, exercise number 1. Boy, this was tough. When I decided to bring this conversation to you today, I was like, oh, this is hard. It's really hard, because if you know me, you know choosing the top 3 exercises is like Sophie's choice. Like, I've got a lot of favorite little baby exercises, and to actually choose the top 3 is difficult. So let's go. Number 1, can you guess? Rona. So glad you are here. Number 1, deadlift. Top of the list. Number 1 is a deadlift. I like a traditional deadlift. I love a Romanian deadlift for sure. I love a single leg deadlift, but the deadlift today that's at the top of the list is your traditional deadlift, which is a 3-phase movement where it's a hip hinge and then it is a hip flexion, which means that your knees bend and your hips bend into kind of like a squat, and then you stand back up. So, exercise number one that absolutely is super, super key to be in your programming is a deadlift. Now, you can absolutely do a deadlift with dumbbells. And of course, I'm partial to doing it with a barbell. I feel that learning a deadlift properly is easier with a barbell. It's just easier to get the mechanics down because the barbell kind of guides you in terms of where you should go, but also where you can't go. And so I really, really, really prefer to do a deadlift with a barbell. And if you work out at home and a barbell is just not an option for you, dumbbells are absolutely okay. So, if you're just popping in live, please say hello. I'm going over 3 key strength exercises that you definitely want to have in your repertoire each week. And I'm going to go over each one and reveal it, as well as give you some specifics on how to do each one right. So, the first one is a deadlift, and we're going to go over a few things to really make sure that you're doing it right. And if you're newer to this language, the kind of deadlift that I'm talking about here is a traditional deadlift where the bar slides down your legs as your hips reach back. The knees and the hips bend so that you sit down into a little bit of a squat. It's about a partial squat, a third of a squat, and then you stand back up. That is a full deadlift. Bent leg deadlift, which is different than a straight leg deadlift. So, how to do the deadlift right? The key thing that I think is super, super helpful in learning your deadlift is to think of it in 3 phases. There is a hips pushing back, and then there is a sitting down, and then there's a standing up. 3 phases: hips back, sit down, stand up. And if you just start with that and you start to focus on those 3 phases of movement, you'll get your deadlift. You'll be close enough that it's good enough. So, the first phase of a deadlift is what we call a hip hinge. So, when you're standing at the top of your deadlift and your dumbbells or your barbell are hanging down towards your legs, arms are straight, the first phase of your deadlift is with your knees soft. Imagine that I'm standing behind you. Imagine I'm behind you and I put a rope or a belt around the front of your hips. The first phase of a deadlift is if I were to pull that rope back and your hips get pulled back in space. Your hips get sucked back in space. That's called a hip hinge. So if you can imagine in a hip hinge, your hips get pulled back in space. And that causes, if your hips get pulled back in space, what does that do to your upper body? If your hips got pushed back into space, it causes your torso to bend forward. Okay. It causes that to naturally bend forward and counterbalance. So a deadlift is not bending over. A deadlift is the hips get pulled back so that you come forward into a forward motion, but it's happening because you're pushing your hips back. And a little more advanced is to think about your hips getting sucked back into space. If you can think about me standing behind you and pulling your hips back, that's that first phase of a deadlift. And it happens with your knees slightly bent and a natural little bit neutral curvature in your lower back. You want to keep that little bit of a curvature, an arch, a little wee bit of an arch in your lower back. It's absolutely critical and essential. That's phase 1. Phase 2 of your deadlift, once your barbell or your dumbbells get right around your knees and your knees have space to bend, then what you do is you sit down into a partial squat. Now, it's not a full squat. It's actually about a third of a squat, maybe even it's about a third of a squat. It's not even a half of a squat. It's about a third of a squat. So your knees bend, your hips bend, and you sit down into it before you stand back up. When you stand up, make sure that your hips come completely forward, you squeeze your glutes, and you finish off with perfect posture before you start again. So perfect posture, hips are open, knees are open, and that's your third phase. Soften the knees to bend the hips back, to let those hips get sucked back in space, and then you repeat the movement, and that is your deadlift. So when you're doing it with a barbell, a great way to do it is to think about letting the bar stay in contact with your legs and sliding the bar down your legs as your hips reach back. The same can apply with dumbbells, but your dumbbells are going to be pretty much not to the outsides of your legs or to the front, but about 3/4 open from the front of your legs. Keep that weight load, whether it's the dumbbells or the barbell, keep it as close to your legs as you possibly can at all phases of the motion, even at the bottom. A big mistake that I see with my clients is at the bottom of the exercise, that barbell or the dumbbells start to move away from your shins. And you want the barbell or the dumbbells to be super tight, close to your shins, even when the knees are bent and you're in that partial squat. So exercise number 1 of the 3 key moves and how to do them right is deadlift. Exercise number 2, this is a tough one, is either a reverse grip lat pull down, it could be a band pull down, or an assisted pull up, chin up. It's the same exact exercise. So the movement pattern I want you getting is from here to here. And that can happen either by having a bar, pulling a bar down, pulling a band down, or pulling yourself up in an assisted fashion with a resistance band. So that movement pattern is so important because the biggest muscle in your upper body is your lats, your latissimus dorsi. It's the biggest, intended to be the biggest muscle in your upper body. And you've heard me talk about the glutes being the largest muscle group in the entire body. Your glutes, 3 muscles, are the most important muscle group of your entire body. And of course, of your lower body. For the upper body, I would argue the second most important muscle are your lats, is your lats. Latissimus dorsi is one muscle, so I guess it's singular, right? Is your lats, even though we say lats, plural, confusing. So the most important muscle of the upper body is latissimus dorsi. Now, I would argue also if the most important muscle group of the entire body is your glutes, I would say the hamstrings are a really close second, and they are in tie with the lats. But because you get a lot of hamstring training through your other lower body exercises, that's why I decided that a lat-based exercise would be the number 2 of 3 key exercises for today's topic. Because your lat movement, a lat pull down or an assisted chin up, same movement, that muscle, that movement doesn't get mimicked in any other exercise that you're doing in the gym. But it's an important muscle to keep you functional, to keep your shoulders healthy, to keep your core strong, to keep your shoulder girdle in position, to improve your pulling muscles, to keep your spine protected. So your latissimus dorsi, the lats, are so important, and you can't really hit them effectively on any other exercise except a lat pull down or an assisted chin up. And a free body weight chin up could do it too. But in my experience, most women don't really do full, proper body weight chin ups perfectly. They tend to get up into their traps. And so I tend to avoid them. But a lat pull down, a cable lat pull down is, and specifically a reverse cable lat pull down, is absolutely always going to be in my top list of exercises because it's just so important. Now, if you're not working out at a gym, you can mimic that same exact movement pattern with a handled resistance band. You just attach your resistance band to something above your head. If you need to kneel down on the ground and perform that same movement pattern, either with your hands facing your shoulders or your hands being in neutral, either one is totally fine. But it's that pulling downward that really hits on the lats. And absolutely, that is number 2 without a doubt. 3 key exercises that you want to have in your weekly repertoire. And absolutely, lat pull down is up there. If you're popping in live, number 1 was a deadlift. Number 2 is a reverse grip lat pull down or an assisted pull up in the form of a chin up. So pull-ups and chin-ups, people kind of get confused. Technically, a pull-up is wide grip. Technically, a chin-up is reverse grip. Either way, it looks like a pull-up. But technically, I'm talking about a reverse grip type chin-up is number 2. And number 3 of the 3 key moves, oh wait, I got to tell you how to do a pull-up right. 3 key moves and how to do them right. Number 2 is your lat pull down or your assisted chin up. And so I want to teach you the key things to know to do it properly, because this exercise is so easy to mess up. It's so easy to not get it right. And the problem with that, when you don't get it right, when you don't get your chin up or your pull up right, is that you end up using your traps and your arms. And while that might not sound like a problem to use your arms, a lat pull down or a chin up, the whole goal, the whole purpose of it is to actually strengthen the lats. So in order to strengthen your lats, you have to be doing it with perfect technique, absolutely perfect technique, so that you can get into the lats. The key thing on your technique and how to do a reverse grip pull down, a lat pull down, or a chin up right first is to start with a lighter weight load. Use a lighter weight load to make sure that your shoulders are staying back in space and down in space. Back in space and down in space. So that at the top of your chin up or at the bottom of your pull down, you get your entire girdle down, the shoulder girdle down. The chest lifts as the shoulders come down, and that's absolutely critical for hitting your lats. What happens is people end up using too heavy of weight loads. Their lats are weak, can't do it. And so the work and the emphasis shifts up here, which is your arms and your traps. And then you're not even hitting your lats, which is the whole purpose of the exercise. So the first thing to remember with this exercise is to start with a really light weight load. Start with a light enough weight load that at the bottom of the exercise, you really get your shoulders back and down like crazy. Thinking about driving your shoulder girdle towards your hips, that's going to engage your core. That's going to take the work off your traps, and it's going to put that work onto your lats. Start with a weight load. And at the bottom of a lat pull down, really think about pinching and lifting your chest upward. You want to lift your chest up at the bottom of the move, chest up, so that your shoulders come down and you really energetically get that chest lift to get into the lats. The last thing that you really want to think about on getting your lat reverse grip, lat pull down, it could be a wide lat pull down, it could be a chin up. The last thing that's really, really important is to be able, again, to have a light enough weight load that you can go to full extension with the arms. You want to come all the way almost to a dead hang on your lat pull down here with your elbows nice and straight before you pull down again. A big mistake that I see people make is they go to here and they pull back down, or a chin up, right? They only go halfway down and then they go back up, halfway down or even 3/4 of the way, right back down. When I'm teaching a chin up or a pull up, I like a dead hang before you chin up again. Same with a lat pull down. Technically, I like a dead hang, but the thing you want to watch for is even in your dead hang, you don't want those shoulders to ride up. This is not the bottom of your chin up, and this is not the bottom of your lat pull down. That is. So arms are extended, but shoulders are down, chest is up, and those arms are fully lengthened out, even though the shoulders stayed down. So throughout your lat pull down or your chin up, you've got to keep your shoulders down and lock them there. That's why using a lighter weight load is so key, because at the bottom, you've got to be able to keep this integration at the shoulders, even when the arms are fully extended and straight. That's really hard to do. Really hard to do. Most people, when the arms are straight, their shoulders have to ride up to some degree. I'm personally not a fan of that. Other experts in the field will tell you to let those shoulders protract, okay, and elevate, and then to pull them back in and down. Other experts will tell you to do that. I'm just not really a fan of it. I like to keep the shoulders locked in as the arms come upward. Keep it anchored. So that's number 2, which is a reverse grip lat pull down, which is my top favorite. Of this movement pattern, a reverse grip pull down is number 1, a wide grip pull down is number 2, a assisted chin up is number 3, and a wide pull up. I never do it. I almost never have a client do it. Even if the client was a man, I'm just not a fan of a wide grip pull up. Most people don't do it very well. So that's number 2. Welcome. If you're here live, please say hello. If you're watching this in playback, you can say hello too. And if you're having a beverage, do let me know what it is. I am so excited to open up the lychee sencha from Upton Tea. Oh my goodness! I just spilled my tea all over you guys. Oh my God. My camera just totally collapsed and I've got tea all over me and we're going to have to roll with it. Oh my God. That's what happens on live TV, you guys, when you don't have a very solid camera stand. Oh, good Lord. Hold on. All right, let's go into number 3, and then I'm going to clean up. We're going to cut it short today, you guys. Oy, oy, oy. Okay, number 3. This is Mr. Bear. Bear, say hello to everybody. Isn't he so cute? Okay, number 3, you guys. Number 3, key moves and how to do them right. Number 3 is an overhead press. That can be done with a barbell or a dumbbell. Okay, either one. I guess it didn't get me too bad. Overhead press either with a barbell or with dumbbells. Once again, my preference is to do an overhead press with a barbell. I really love a barbell, but you can absolutely do it with dumbbells. So the reason why I love an overhead press is because in the real world, your arms go up over your head, okay? It's important to strengthen and reinforce the muscle group, the deltoids, major muscle group deltoids, that's responsible for throwing your arms over your head. For whatever reason you're taking your arms over your head, that is a very important movement pattern. A barbell overhead press. Let me get my camera straight. A barbell this way. Barbell overhead press, I really love because what it does is it creates symmetry between the hands and the arms on the push. And it makes it easier for you to learn symmetry at the shoulders. It's easier to do it that way than with dumbbells. There's too many variables in dumbbells, and a barbell helps to lock you off. And I just have a tendency to really like a barbell better for an overhead press. Now, I know you might have heard out there somewhere in the world that overhead pressing is not good for your shoulders, especially if you have shoulder issues. Again, I really don't agree with that because I think this idea of don't do overhead pressing is really silly because are you never going to put your arms over your head for the rest of your life? Are you never going to pick something up and put it on a shelf? Are you never just ever going to take your arms over your head to wash your hair or to reach up and grab something, a window blind, whatever it may be, right? In real life, your arms go over your head. And strength training is designed to reinforce the movements we do in real life. The real reason why we strength train is so that you're better out in the world. So every exercise you do in your workouts really should reinforce the movement patterns that happen in the real world. And one of those movement patterns is taking your arms up over your head. If you can't take your arms up over your head in a healthy way with full range of motion without pain, we've got to work on that movement pattern for you. And the best way to do it is with overhead pressing. Now, again, how to do it right? Start with a lighter weight load. Super, super important. Start with a really light weight load. Even if you're starting with a 15-pound barbell, just so you can get that movement pattern down, it's really going to set you up for success. I love doing it with a barbell. You can absolutely do it with a dumbbell. And how to do it right. So let's start first with that barbell. When you're doing a barbell overhead press, the first key thing is hand placement. And the biggest mistake is I see people all over the place. Generally, their hands are too wide. Their hands are out here on their barbell, and they're pressing from here. And not ideal. You want your hands, really technically, you want your thumbs just outside the width of your shoulders or just right in front of your shoulders, the front of your shoulders, okay? In front of the front of your shoulders. So that when you press up, the elbows are staying narrow and pushing straight up. If you've got a wide grip, the elbows have to either come wide or go like this. Neither one is ideal because we want to keep a certain angle at the elbow, a safe angle at the elbow, and keep the wrists mostly over the elbow. And so this is your overhead pressing motion with the hands, thumbs just outside the width of your shoulders or hands slightly in front of your shoulders for a barbell press. You're pressing up and obviously passing your face, and then you're finishing with the barbell over your head, not in front. So the key to an overhead press, again, is to get your barbell directly over the top of your head, and then it comes forward slightly to pass your nose, and then it passes your nose and anchors back above your head. So there's a slight swing forward and a slight swing back on your overhead press, keeping the elbows mostly under the wrist for the most part. Okay, there might be a little bit of an angle there. That same movement pattern applies with your dumbbells, but your dumbbells, you have a little bit more range of motion. So dumbbells could even come a little closer and push up from here because you've got more open and close positioning with the dumbbells on an overhead press than you do with a barbell. Obviously, your hands are locked off. And so with the dumbbell, totally okay to have a slightly more opened range of motion, but you still want to start in front of the shoulders, not out here, Okay. A lot of people want to do, I see a lot of people doing their overhead press from here. And it's actually in towards the front of the body, whether it's with dumbbells or a barbell. You want those elbows coming more in front of the body to keep the shoulders safe, happy, and healthy. Those are the 3 key moves and how to do them right. Questions. Let me put my spectacles back on so I can see who's here and say hello. Hi, JB is here. Be careful. Do not touch the computer. Oh my gosh. Okay. Rona, how are you? I'm going to check in with you later. Lois, so glad that you are here. Holly Miles. Heidi, love this episode as I'm doing deadlifts and reverse grip pull downs today in my workout. I love it. So good. Elizabeth, I'm going to start including barbell presses. Already doing the other 2, but have just been overhead pressing kettlebells, not barbells, but I like your logic. Hey, a kettlebell's okay too, but I really do I love how a barbell locks off your mechanics and creates symmetry between the 2 sides of the body. I love it. It makes it easier for you to do a movement more symmetric. It just makes it so much easier. And that's a big reason why I like a barbell for so many different exercises. Same reason for the deadlift as I do for the overhead press. That doesn't mean you can't do these exercises also with dumbbells. But if you're going to do one deadlift and one overhead press, I would choose it with a barbell. But you could do a barbell overhead press and a dumbbell overhead press, or a barbell overhead press and a kettlebell overhead press. You can do both, but my first choice is to always do it with a barbell. You'll learn the mechanics better. You'll learn it easier because that bar keeps you symmetric from left to right. And it also locks off the positioning, especially on your deadlift, because that barbell is going to get stopped at your shin. And so it changes the mechanics and you're able to move around it more specifically, more precisely, because that barbell is going to change your mechanics. Yes. One other question. What do I see here? Googling all of these things. I love it, Mamie. I'm so glad. Yes, Google them so you can see the videos. Oh, and hey, if you guys want to see these exercises in action, you can come over to YouTube. My Women's Strength Nation channel on YouTube has all of the exercises. Every exercise I talk about, for the most part, I think pretty much every single exercise with the exception of maybe a landmine squat, which I don't really talk about a whole lot anyway. But these 3 exercises all appear. There are great video tutorials over on my over on my Women's Strength Nation channel on YouTube. Women's Strength Nation on YouTube. You can find video tutorials for these 3 key exercises that you want to be doing every single week and how to do them right. So once again, if you missed the top of the live feed, these are 3 key exercises that we want to appear in your weekly routine, but you need other exercises as well. These aren't the only 3, and you don't have to do these 3 all in one workout. It's just that I want these 3 to appear somewhere in your programming so that you're getting a thorough and comprehensive strengthening to the body. And these are also technically, these 3 could be a standalone workout because you've got a deadlift, a pull, and a press. So it actually could serve as a standalone workout if you wanted it to. Holly Miles, thank you for these 3 exercises. You specified bent deadlift. What is the difference in bent versus straight leg deadlift, other than the obvious bent leg versus straight? Thank you. So a stiff leg deadlift, a straight leg deadlift is really a Romanian deadlift. The biggest difference is you don't deepen into the hip and the knee flexion. You basically are just hip hinging and standing up. Hips back, stand up. Hips back, stand up is basically what you do on a stiff leg deadlift versus a traditional bent knee deadlift. Okay. Really great question there. Good. Good, good, good. Okay, guys, and that is it for today. Yes, I will be here next week. Absolutely. I'm hoping to be as consistent as possible. Um, and I'm going to go clean up this little mess that I made on my desk here with my tea. Oh my God. Oh, always something exciting happening around here. So we will be back next week for a new episode Tuesday, 1 o'clock East Coast. 1 p.m. on the East Coast, Holly Perkins Fitness on Facebook if you want to join live so that you can ask questions and say hello. And if you're watching this in playback, this will appear over on my blog at some point in the future after we air live. Until then, I hope you have a wonderful week. Get after it. Do these 3 exercises, and I'll see you next time. Have a great day.